Welcome to the Rugby League Outsiders, the show dedicated to promoting rugby league of all formats and levels outside the traditional heartlands. From tips and tricks for on-field success to interviews with players and coaches and everything in between. Whether you're a seasoned veteran or an absolute newcomer, this show is for you. So grab your headphones, sit back and get ready for this week's episode of the Rugby League Outsiders. Okay, welcome to the latest episode of the Rugby League Outsiders podcast. My name's Craig.
And my name's Karl.
And we're joined this week by a couple of great guests. So we've got Graham Berry, who is an MND fundraiser. We're going to be talking a little bit about that, and also a lifelong Wigan fan. And also Jason Spafford, who will be introducing himself in a minute. He's the Director of Rugby at N.E.W Ravens Club in the Midlands, but also has got loads of history with Rugby League in the Midlands. So we're going to be chatting to him. We'll also be tackling in our set of six this week some breaking news from around the region, including a huge win for the Midland Hurricanes this week. Did everyone see that? Huge win. Brilliant. And also an exclusive announcement regarding the newly formed Worcester team. What's the name? Wanderers, that's it. That's what Worcester team. Okay, so over to you two. Spaff, I don't know if we start us off. Like, what brings you through the your history of rugby league to be on this settee now?
Well, I've played for longer than I can remember now. To be perfectly honest, over 30 years playing from the age of about 18 when I gave up boxing and looked for a different sport, and just by chance bumped into somebody who played rugby league with Redditch Halcyons at a party, got invited down and started playing there and never really looked back. Gone through several clubs, and as Fred alluded to last week, I now play for Redditch Ravens, or New Ravens as we are now, which is the development and the rebranding of Halcyons after all those years.
So we'll talk to you much later about, a little bit more in depth on this, but so had you played any rugby prior to the boxing and that, or?
I'd literally done a little bit of school. That was it. Other than, I did go down to a local rugby union club, then found out that my age group played on a Saturday and I couldn't play because I was working as a school sixth former. So then I found rugby league was playing on Sunday and went along and had a go. So really, no, not really, no.
Amazing. And just, people will be able to gauge a lot of your character from this. Which club do you support?
St Helens.
So you can tell me one from that. And then straight over the hill, we've got a massive Wigan supporter. Welcome to the show, Graham. Obviously, we've been friends for a long time now. What about you? What was your kind of journey through rugby league or whatever to this? To be sat on the settee here?
Well, I started on the right side of Billinge Hill, which is all that divides Wigan and St Helens. My rugby league story goes back to about 1982, when I was 10 years old. I went to primary school with a lad called Andy Ireland, who eventually signed for Widnes. His dad, John, was the coach at Widnes Tigers under 10s, I think it would be then. One day Andy Ireland said to me, "You'd make a good prop." And I thought a prop was a rugby post. Never heard of it.
Yeah.
So anyway, I started going down to Widnes Tigers in the same team as Bobby Goulding. Bobby and Andy made it. I was never going to make it, let's be fair. But I grew up in Ashton in Makerfield, part of Wigan Borough. So I've been a lifelong Wigan fan, but geographically slap bang between Wigan and St Helens. So, I had the pick of the amateur clubs. Never really stuck with one amateur club. A bit of a journeyman in me youth. Blackbrook, obviously Widnes Tigers, but Blackbrook, Goulburn Parkside, Haydock were only a short bus ride away.
Yeah.
So I was there right in the thick of it.
And then sort of into adulthood, because obviously you like us, from the north, resettled in the Midlands. Mm-hmm. How did you kind of get back involved in rugby league other than kind of watching it?
Just by chance. Moving down here, I think it would be 2016, something like that. Always followed the game, hadn't played for a number of years. Just happened to think one day, let's Google Rugby League Telford, because I was moving to Telford, or Rugby League Shropshire, or whatever it was I Googled, and up came Telford Raiders. In fact, the first thing that came up was Telford Raiders touch Rugby League Monday night, 7:00. And I thought, perfect. That's my way to keep in touch with the game and keep involved with it.
Amazing. So obviously we'll come on and talk more about your story in a little bit. So we're going to move into our little segment that we do, okay, which we call the set of six. So it's six bits of news from around the region, okay. So Karl, what news have you picked out for us this week?
Got 6 great stories this week. So tackle one, story number 1. Leamington have announced not 1, not 2, but 6 physios for their first team this year, which is unheard of, I would say, in amateur rugby. I've never known a team have 6 physios, but fair play to them. They're clearly taking player welfare very seriously. Tackle 2, Ravens, new Ravens. We got our man here, can probably jump in here. The Ravens are looking at extending their junior rugby into the autumn this year because I'll let you jump in. You've exhausted the Midlands rugby, I believe. You're going from strength to strength, and you're looking for extra games for your junior players.
Yeah, we're really lucky. We've got tiers of juniors who have been really successful.
Yeah.
We seem to attract a whole load of really good quality juniors who we quickly managed to get into the rugby league mindset. And we went to all the festivals last year and really needed a little bit more of a challenge. We've also got involved in the last few years about trying to resurrect the idea of East versus West Midlands competition to go post-season and to give those kids that wanted to carry on playing their rugby league outside of the summer season the opportunity. And it's just never really taken off, unfortunately. So we just decided this year we need to start sticking together as a club, still giving those opportunities to those young people. And if that means we've got to go a little bit further back out into the heartlands, so be it.
So it's got to be said the new Ravens are potentially one of the most successful junior clubs around here. Is that, am I right in saying that?
Yeah, I think we've got probably the largest amount across age ranges, certainly signed up, and we've been consistently like that because we do put a lot into our juniors.
Yeah.
So what ages do they start? And
We've actually got starting from officially 4.
Yeah. Really?
Actual fact, my son started a little bit earlier than that because he just wouldn't stay out of it. We've got a little leaguers program which is 4 till 6, and then we go to under 7s, under 9s, under 11s, under 13s, and under 15s. So we do use those 2-year age gaps because trying to get every age group is just a bit too much. And to be honest, it doesn't do them any hard to play down a year and have something to aspire to the next year. So we found that works well for us.
Just obviously other clubs listening to this, though, are thinking, well, that'd be amazing to have a youth set up like that. So what's been some of the things that have been successful in recruiting those kids and getting them kids interested?
I mean, one of the things that we focused on is the coaching that goes into it. Everybody that's involved in the coaching has come through the club in some way, either a first team player or still first team player or an ex-first team player, or they've been juniors that have come through the junior system. So they know the culture of the club, they know the way we do things. We also bought massively into what was called the Embed the Pathways scheme, which is now the England Talent Pathway. Yeah. And when that came along, we got involved with that. We were then given the opportunity to share that with all their coaches from Tony Threatwell and Anna Atherton, gave us the permission to do that, and everybody bought into that. So we introduced it across the club. It was aimed between 12 and 14-year-olds. We just introduced it to everybody, and it works.
Do you have kids playing union and league, or?
Yeah, we do. Yeah. We do have some that just play league, but mainly do play both.
And girls and young ladies as well? Or?
We do have, especially in the younger age groups, we have girls. We do find that they tend to drop off when they get to sort of 13.
Is it mixed?
It's mixed.
Mixed for initially, yeah.
Yeah, and then when we get to that age, it becomes single sex, and after, unfortunately, we do seem to lose some. We have a number that are quite interested, but trying to get enough to make some kind of competition is really difficult. I know that's something that the local rugby union clubs have exactly the same problem. Trying to get enough girls to get into a team is a major, major problem. It's not through the want to try, but it's just difficult.
You don't need just one club, do you? You need a series of clubs going in the same direction to make it work. So if you only got one club, you got no one to play. And
exactly. And I think the major problem most of the girls find is because they can't get enough at one age group, they have to then play mixed age groups, which means they have to go playing touch or tag or something. Yeah. And most of the girls want to play contact, and they can't do that, which is be frustrating for us as well if we couldn't do that. So
having such a deep youth setup, then what are the other benefits that you've had? I mean, I'm assuming that it might be a little bit easier to recruit volunteers for perhaps the first team because there's parents involved with their kids. Am I right? Or
to a certain extent, yeah. I mean, we certainly get volunteers with the first team now are people that have come through the club, and everybody understands the ethos of the club and where we're at. However, the fact that we have such a short season, it is difficult to keep those players tied in because there will be undoubtedly other opportunities for them. And to be honest, because they play at such a high standard as well, we do tend to find we lose some being offered incentives other places to go. So, but we keep our volunteers, and we're really lucky in that respect that people like what we do. They like being part of the club, and that's one of the things that, being involved in the Midlands for so long, we've seen so many teams come and go over the years, and the ones that survived are the clubs, not the teams. Yeah. Telford are the same, Nottingham the same, Coventry have been the same to a certain extent as well. And we were very much a case of we've got to build a club, and that's about focusing on the juniors. So even if the juniors weren't as successful as they are, it's important that we have them because it's about
you've got those players to feed up essentially. Eventually, I used to play for Wolverhampton, and they had a good first team, a good second team, but they had no junior development. And eventually it fell away. Like you say, the clubs that are the most successful are the ones that have got a good junior setup. What's the oldest team you've got at the minute in the juniors?
15s.
So in a couple of years' time, they're going to be feeding up to first team rugby, aren't they? I mean, you're a few years off it yet, but
we'd hope so. Yeah. So that's what we hope. Yeah, and we have got one 15-year-old, which we hope might move into open age. I mean, that's another major thing that the Midlands has to overcome, the transition from juniors, which there's a lot of successful clubs with juniors across the Midlands, but transferring those into open age is a big step. And I've got to say, Telford is probably the team that's done it most successfully over the years. They've really taken a lot up into from that step from 16 age group, not throwing them straight into open age, but finding them some opportunities, even if it means going up to North West counties to do that.
Yeah, so, it's slightly different talking point, but I mean, I remember being 15, getting called up to first team rugby, you know what I mean, like blokes, and getting the shit kicked out of me. But it does seem like we're just a little bit reluctant to do that with our youngsters down here, or maybe is it a sign of the times, or
I think it's a sign of the times.
You just can't do it. You just can't throw someone into.
I think generally, I mean, I'm a school teacher, and we just said, we were only saying the other day, we've had a kid move to the school from the UAE, and he came to a hockey practice after school the other day and asked me what this water coming from the school was. Now, if he'd been here a week, I could understand, but he's been here a month, and I think that's because we just don't go out in the rain anymore. Yeah. And that's the first time he's actually been outside, and that's lunchtime or PE lessons or anything. I think that's just a reflection of the times we are reluctant to throw kids in where we did before.
And maybe for good reason, but just
absolutely
wondered what was about that. What about you, Graham? Would you play 16 in the first team and get beaten up?
No, not really. No. I think I always played my age group.
Yeah.
but did dabble with a pub team in Wigan when I was probably 19-ish. But even then, you felt the difference because you're not.
Well, I can't imagine a pub team in Wigan been. You know what's happening there, don't you?
Not a bunch of pie eaters out by any chance.
They've got like one call for a drive and 300 calls for an all-in fight.
Or a pie. I'll just get that out there, mate, because I know you're going to do it at some point.
Yeah. Brilliant. Okay, what we got?
Right, tackle 3 then. Talking about women's rugby, which we've just been talking about, is a seamless transition into my next piece. Nottingham Outlaws women's team have been promoted to national level, which is absolutely fantastic news. So they're going to be playing up on the national stage for the first time, and their first game is going to be against the Halifax Panthers. So it's just another good news story coming out of the Midlands. I think the thing with the women's game is, obviously, we've got Super League teams and they're going to all have their own teams. But in the women's game, you could potentially have teams playing Super League level that are from somewhere else. So if you get a good women's team developed somewhere, you could be women's Super League could be on TV in a couple of years, and it could be a big deal. So I think it's really positive. I know like York Valkyrie are one of the top women's teams. They're playing the Super League, and they've been going for quite a number of years. And they're not necessarily connected to the Saints, a Wigan, Halifax. You know what I mean? So it's good news, and I'm hoping that we'll have more women's teams in the Midlands in the near future. I have heard a few rumours of things that are going to be possible new women's teams that are going on. So yeah, good news.
Well, just on that, I mean, I and you lot will remember as well, like a Super League without a French side in it, like or without Catalan. Now you can't imagine that now. And then even Toronto, a couple of seasons back, that was starting to become the norm, wasn't it? And I think at some point it's going to be the norm for all these clubs to be thinking, all right, there's a team from the Midlands, and it's not strange to them, So it's great.
I think as well, just going back to what you just said, Spaff, and something, obviously Fred talked about expansionism last week, and I'm all for it as well. I'm sick of this M62 corridor stuff, sick of it. I think if, like Karl just said, a women's team from the Midlands starts playing at the professional level and they're travelling up to play, Super League women's teams, Halifax's women's team, what you were just saying about expanding your season for your kids, going up to the north, going up to the Heartlands to play teams from the Heartland, that's where the Heartland can benefit everybody else, because the teams from the Midlands are then going into the Heartland to play traditionally known teams, coming away again and leaving a legacy in the north. So it can't do anything but good for teams from the Midlands.
Well, I think the Midlands is the area that the RFL really should be trying to develop, because we're not too far. We're not in Canada. We're not on the other side of France. It's a general transition. I mean, they've tried things in Wales, haven't they? But I think within the Midlands, we're not far from a Sheffield, or so. The reason we're doing this show is to try and promote the game within this area. So I think there's a lot of positives.
Yeah, there is a lot going on at the moment, and I know with the steps that the RFL are making to try and get a voice to the regions, especially in the south. They are looking at expanding things like regional rep sides and stuff like that. And I think what you said about Wales, and Wales is really a success. I mean, there is good rugby league in Wales, in the north and the south of Wales, but a lot of that is driven by the fact that there's a Welsh team, and there's a Welsh amateur team as well as a pro team when the World Cup comes around, and they've got something to aspire to. And I think that's something that we've had come and go over the years in the Midlands, and we need that back. And I know there's talk about it at the moment, but we do need a representative team, because we've had numerous lads over the years who've played representative stuff for the Midlands and gone and showed that they're as good as anybody in the north.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we need to have that stepping stone for them. So that's important, and that's one thing they do need to focus on. So
I must admit, like the women's game, cut all the stereotypes. I love watching the women's game. Like I love watching, the Aussie women's game is just incredible.
Yeah,
the English women's game is fantastic. So yeah, I'm all for that growing. Like it's great.
Look at the standard that the England women's team played to in the World Cup, and now some of those players are becoming household names, certainly amongst rugby league fans, in the same way that the men are.
Well, I could mention Jodie Cunningham to you. A couple of years ago, probably people never heard of her really, and that's not just the honest truth, isn't it? But yeah, some of these women have now become household names, and the girls who are playing now have got somebody to aspire to. So I think it's really positive. I think the other thing from the Women's World Cup was there were teams there we had not expected to see. We had a Brazil playing there. I think whereas in the men's game we've been sort of stereotyped, we're a Northern England sport, all of a sudden you introduce women's rugby and wheelchair rugby and it just expands and the options are limitless really.
I think you're right. I think the wheelchair rugby was an amazing success. I mean,
I agree.
We'd seen it here in Telford previously. I was taken on a refereeing's course for that years ago and realised what an amazing game it was when some guy got tipped out of a wheelchair, took off his wheel and threw it at someone. I was like, this is hilarious. It's amazing that these guys are so competitive. I didn't realise it was, but to see it on that world stage is really, really good.
Yeah, it was fantastic, wasn't it?
I think the World Cup as a whole,
success.
I've got to say I think it was a success. I think for once the marketing was on point. 63 games, was it?
Yeah.
Across men's, women and wheelchair, all televised, and people were talking about it. I was going out in Shrewsbury, people would say, oh, what football team do you support? I don't. I'm a Wigan lad, rugby league through and through. Bloody hell, we've been watching that Rugby League World Cup. What about the wheelchair game? And it was there in the forefront of people's minds, and I think that's what the RFL need to expand on now, not lose that momentum.
Do you think for those people watching for the first time, I'm a firm believer that there's a lot of perhaps union supporters and union fans that perhaps not even played the game or whatever, but for whatever reason, a bit of bias or whatever, just won't even entertain league. But wheelchair is a softer alternative. I don't mean softer in the game as in.
Did you watch it?
I can put my bias aside and watch this because it's a different sport.
Yeah.
Fundamentally, it's the same sport.
Yeah.
And they watched it and went, this is brilliant. And if they gave up them biases, I'm sure they'd find Super League.
I think for some rugby union fans that did happen as well, because I think it was marketed as a World Cup as a whole. It was putting it into people's front rooms. It was coming through the telly box. So if they started watching wheelchair rugby league, next game on might be a women's or a men's game, then they were watching that as well and people were talking about it. I think the only slight criticism of the RFL I have on this occasion where the marketing's concerned was I think they missed a trick not bringing PDRL under the same umbrella. It was played at the same time, but not really as part of the World Cup. And Masters, I think, was played at the same time. So there was maybe a couple of missed opportunities there for PDRL and Masters Rugby League.
I think it's in the pipeline, though, isn't it? There maybe weren't enough teams to develop it as a proper World Cup, but I think it's definitely in the pipeline. The thing that I like about the wheelchair rugby is nobody can come along and create another type of wheelchair rugby. The RFU can't come along, can they, and say, this is rugby union wheelchair rugby. There can't possibly be two versions of it.
Well, no, but that's not how rugby league was formed, was it? It was formed because it was the same sport that split into two, union and a league. It was the same sport, wasn't it?
Yeah, but what I'm saying with the wheelchair, there can never be two versions of it.
There could be two leagues.
Well, there is the Olympic version of wheelchair, what they call wheelchair rugby, which of course isn't. The players call it murder ball, and it is because it's not a rugby ball, it's a round ball. They can pass in different directions, and it's not really rugby at all. But it's branded as wheelchair rugby in the Olympics.
Right.
And that's the thing that lots of people thought when they saw the wheelchair rugby, it was just going to be that. So when they actually saw it actually was proper rugby as far as passing, not passing forwards, the tags,
tackling,
the actual collisions.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I take nothing away from the wheelchair rugby that played in the Olympics. So we've had a go at that, and it's awesome. But it's not rugby.
It's not the same.
So you're right in that respect. But yeah, I think it brought a lot of people didn't realise that this was an actual game of rugby rather than what they'd seen previous at different competitions.
Yeah, I think the RFL are onto a winner with that one, to be honest with you.
100%.
Absolute winner. They've just got to go 100% at it now. We'll move on anyway.
Well, just one thing. I mean, one thing that's cemented in my mind is that we need a wheelchair guest. You know what I mean? Desperate to speak to someone who's involved in a wheelchair game on whatever capacity, and also a women, a guest from the women and ladies teams, because I'm just fascinated. Just this little conversation alone is just brilliant.
Okay, we'll move on to tackle 4 then. Item number 4 is, we've already touched on it, it's a bit of an exclusive this. So Worcester Wanderers are going to be the brand new team in the Midlands. I've been speaking to their coach the last couple of days, and they've arranged their first friendly, which is going to be against the Telford Raiders on the 6th of May. So that is an exclusive. Their social media is launching online in the next couple of days, so everybody look out for them. Like them, share them, welcome them into the Midlands Rugby League community. So we are going to have them as guests in a couple of weeks' time as well.
I mean, that's great, because I think quite often in the leagues outside the heartlands is the teams are that spread that some travel becomes a real issue. To have another team popping up, what is it, half an hour from you? Is it Spafford? Then.
Not even that, yeah. 45 minutes from us. It's brilliant to have another team in there.
And Fred said last week, didn't he? Competition on the field is where you want it.
Yeah.
Bonding and promotion off the field is also needed. So I think, we all need to get behind Worcester Wanderers. We need to get on the socials. We need to share the socials, and we need to get them out there.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Okay, item number 5, fifth and last. Midlands Premier fixtures were announced last week. 5 teams taking part in the Midlands Premier League this year. So you got Birmingham Bulldogs, Telford Raiders, Oxford Cavaliers, Leamington, and who have I missed? Cov Bears, obviously. Yeah, so 5-team league. There's, I think, have we got 8 teams in the Merit League this year?
Yeah, I think there must be, with the Wanderers coming in now.
Yeah, I heard between 8 and 10. So I think the Merit League is looking strong. Got more teams than ever, and then, like I say, it's a 5-division Premier League, which you can't pick a winner out of that, because all of those teams have been strong at some point in the last couple of years. So that's fantastic news. So 6th tackle, last tackle. Massive win for Midlands Hurricanes. They defeated Cornwall 40 points to 6 in their first game of the season. So again, another massive positive story coming out of the Midlands.
It's definitely a shot across the bow, isn't it? To all those other teams that are perhaps like, this team playing from a big stadium, what I mean? Then to kick off with a win like that, it's just brilliant.
And obviously Cornwall, another developing team, another team outside the heartlands, another Rugby League outsider team, we should say. Another thing I noticed when I was looking on social media, the hospitality was sold out. So fantastic stuff going on down there, and we'll hope to speak to them in the next coming weeks.
It's good to see that happening, especially when last year and the rebranding of Coventry Bears into the Hurricanes was an absolutely brilliant move. It really was. Because I know you've talked to me about not being able to support Saints against Penrith, but unfortunately, whichever way you looked at it, we've all played against Coventry Bears, and to try and get behind them really as a Midlands was
that's exactly the thing I said last week. We just didn't
No.
really sit. Obviously,
and that's their own problem. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
A little bit of jealousy as well. Don't get me wrong.
I suppose
it is great to be able to get behind a team.
it's like a tree, and it feeds up now.
Absolutely,
It's now we've got the Hurricanes at the top, and we're all the amateur clubs within the area, and it all feeds up. So
It all makes
I said
sense,
exactly the
it's really
same.
Good. So, and hopefully we'll see more Midlands lads playing in that Midlands team in the coming years as all our junior development and strong competition in the Premier League and the Merit Leagues leads up to them, because I know we've got a couple in the team, but we need to get more Midlands guys in there.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think we've got to wish Cornwall well as well, haven't we?
Yeah, exactly.
I think they've been all over my social media.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of them. You know, they put the signings up like Telford Raiders have been doing. They put the signings up. We've made a signing from X, Y, and Z club. Some of them 1 or 2 rugby union converts. Some of them even Aussie imports as well, if I remember rightly. So I think we've got to wish them well.
Yeah,
But
100%.
I hope that the establishment looks after them, because as far as expansionism is concerned, they really are out on a limb, aren't they, down there? So I just hope that travel doesn't become an issue, away teams travelling to them doesn't become an issue, and some effort is made to maintain.
Well, they're making all the right noises, aren't they? So it's, so far so good.
Yeah.
There has been the groundwork down there. I can't remember which way round it was, but I know Wigan were involved in, I think it was Cornwall, and Saints were involved in Devon, trying to sort things out in the past few years. So this is the culmination of all that work, and hopefully they're still supporting.
Yeah, we had the Gloucester All Golds, didn't we? But that it didn't last, did it? It's but hopefully these new teams it'll go from strength to strength. So that's a set of 6.
Yeah, okay, so that's a set of 6 complete. We're going to do our little handover now where we speak to you 2 guests.
We're inviting listeners to appear as guests on our show and share their insights, opinions and experience with rugby league outside the traditional heartlands. Whether you're a player, coach, fan or just someone with a unique perspective on the game, we want to hear from you. So if you're interested in being a guest on our show, don't hesitate to reach out. And as always, thanks for tuning in. And now back to the show.
It's quite an easy decision to get our next guest on, because incredibly, what's the right word? Heavily involved in the Midlands is what I was trying to say. Not incredibly heavily, don't really work. So yeah, after Fred, because he's obviously the closest to us, the next guy that you would call Mr. Rugby League in the Midlands is Spaff.
Yeah.
So it was just an obvious decision, really. What kind of things were you thinking of, Karl, when you invited Spaff along?
Well, I'll tell you why we invited Spaff along, because I was speaking to Fred in the off season and various marketing bits and bobs that we were going to do. Obviously, we were doing a bit of investigating what we could talk about in the Midlands, and he gave me this scrapbook. Old school scrapbook, and it's got various bits and bobs from Barla and teams that have joined with professional clubs, etc. And page 1 was a letter from Jason Spafford, which is the reason I decided to get you on. So I'll just read a little bit, and then you can sort of tell me about what was going on at this point, and then tell me your rugby league career, really. So it was from 22nd of February 1994. Dear Mr. Berry, I am at present a student at Wolverhampton University, Shropshire campus. As part of my study, I'm conducting a development project for the Rugby Football League in the Telford area. My work has been primarily targeted at junior schools. However, following a training session I recently with the Telford All Blacks under-14s age group, it's been suggested that I could more immediately help by conducting some introductory sessions in secondary schools, etc. Yours sincerely, Jason Spafford. So, what was going on at this time?
And that must have taken ages to type out on a typewriter.
I sent it to deputy head of Thomas Telford School, so I had to make it sound at least a little bit. So,
Until it wasn't written by a northerner as well.
I was at university doing a business enterprise degree at the Shropshire campus here at Prisley, part of Wolverhampton University at the time. I don't think they actually have a campus here anymore. But there was like load of us dumped here, and I think the first year the campus had been opened, and I chose to come here and do the degree, and know full well that there was rugby league locally, which was one of my prerequisites of going to university. I want to go somewhere where I can play rugby league.
Yeah.
And then the opportunity came to actually tie that in with the degree, and I went and had a meeting with Tom O'Donovan up at Redditch, explained what I wanted to do, and he said, yeah, they threw me on a coaching course straight away, and then got me out to talk to Dave Berry, who was really the person who started the junior development in the Midlands, and taking those 4 or 5 primary schools around Telford, and rather than just trying to get everybody into a club and taking them to the North West counties or somewhere else in the Midlands to play, they were actually setting up a little league so they could play locally, and then they could then use those players afterwards to make up a town team. Very much like the model in the north, my understanding of what goes on in Wigan and St Helens and Widnes and all these towns up north. So
Dave Berry didn't try and set up a team. He tried to set up a league, basically. He went all in. So there's a few names on there. Randley Raiders, which eventually became Telford, I believe. Three Oaks Crushers, Leo Gomery Lions, and Brindleford Broncos.
Yeah, that's right.
That was the league.
Sounds like something out of Harry Potter.
all the little areas and schools based around Telford. And so they took the areas and they gave them on. They were only playing 5 or 6 aside. I mean, Randley Raiders was basically Dave Berry's kids.
Right.
I think 3 of them were playing in the team. And they were whopping everybody by miles, to be honest, because they'd grown up in Hull, and I used to go and play with them at a weekend, throw a ball around, and I used to be amazed that these 6-year-olds were better than me. So, but he did, he set up a league, and that then turned into what eventually became Telford Raiders. So,
How old was you then? Who was it?
21, 22, something like that.
I mean, what strikes me about your story, so born in Kent, is that right?
Yeah.
And predominantly lived down south.
Yeah.
Yeah. What? And then all of a sudden, obviously, by the sounds of it, just became a super fan of rugby league. At a time, I mean, that's as Super League was emerging, isn't it? 95, 96. What was it that hooked you?
I don't know. As I say, I boxed as a kid from the age of 10. I gave up boxing when just after I turned senior after a concussion, which I fought a fight that I still don't remember to this day. So that was the time to say, no, I've had enough of that. And looked for another sport, tried a bit of American football, tried a few other things, and then ran into somebody in a pub who said, why don't you come play rugby league? Had a go, met who is my best mate now.
Where was that?
In Redditch.
In Redditch.
It was Redditch Halcyons.
Oh,
yeah. Fred started talking about this last week, trying to find out what was the oldest club. I believe he's right. I believe the Halcyons was the oldest team. They played their first game against a team from Worcester, ironically.
Right. Okay.
Well, it depends if you include, because Mansfield had a team many years ago, and then which became Nottingham, didn't it?
Originally,
it became
No. Was it before?
Yeah.
Was it not Mansfield?
Mansfield was Gary Baldy before Mansfield.
Oh, was it?
There was a team there, and then there was also Bulwell, and there was Nottingham Crusaders and Tolbar there. But you're probably right. There probably was teams up there.
Yeah, but
but West Midlands certainly, I would say.
And it's about as far down the West Midlands as you can get, isn't it? Really, Redditch, So.
So you're laying the claim to be the oldest team in the Midlands.
I think probably existing at the moment. Yeah. I would have said so. I mean, I know I wasn't there at the start, but I know. The guy who started it started in the 80s.
Oh, wow.
I know they were playing in the National Cup in the 80s and winning as well. A lot of Australians came to Redditch to play.
Didn't know any better, did they?
Did very well in the National Cup. Dave Pickett, who started things, he was a lad from Sheffield and started it all up, and then it went from there, really. From that, I believe Birmingham Bulldogs came few years after that, West Midlands Police also had a team. Wolverhampton were playing. So yeah, I think you'll find certainly the West Midlands, which is most of my knowledge, the Halcyons are probably the oldest.
It's interesting, isn't it, when you talk about the Midlands and these outer areas, and it's classed as a developing rugby league area. But yeah, if you look at it, there's big teams there from the 80s. It surprises me that we haven't gone further, to be honest with you, because if we've got our teams there that have been there that long, we should be pushing it, really, shouldn't we?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's crazy, really, when you think to yourself, they did all the investment in London, all the investment in South Wales, and you completely ignored the region that they were travelling to get there. So yeah, it is amazing, really.
I remember in the early days of Super League, I can't remember what year it was exactly, but it was a couple of years after Super League had started, probably 97, 98 something. They used to take Super League games on the road. They're like, I remember the Bulls played down in Leicester, and the crowds were massive, weren't they? It went down really well. So it surprises me that we got abandoned a little bit after then, and
it was amazingly successful. I remember going to that at Leicester Tigers, and of course Leicester Tigers is season ticket hall. There was actually Dean Richards stood outside selling tickets out of his hand because they didn't have the capacity to actually sell the tickets at the ground.
All right.
Yeah, it was absolutely fantastic, but it's one of these initiatives that didn't really carry on, unfortunately.
Do you think it's M62 mentality again, though, that dictates that the Midlands is seen as a development area? Because like you just said, there's teams here going back to the 80s, West Midlands and from what you've just been talking about, East Midlands obviously as well, with Mansfield and Nottingham. But is it the establishment that dictates that this is a development area because it's not Lancashire and Yorkshire? Is that the way we see it?
Well, I find it hard to think that someone's made that decision and not done some kind of SWOT analysis on the club and the potential and all that. But then I wouldn't be surprised if it was just like there. I just wouldn't be surprised, by the RFL or whoever made the decision. So
it is remarkable that we're 25, 30 years of Super League now. And the original plan, of course, was to have teams
big city clubs, wasn't it? Yeah,
big city clubs. And yet, I sitting next to Wigan here, full well, the real barrier, I don't think even is the people making the decisions at RFL. I think it's the actual towns. Full well, can you put one club in Hull? No. Because they won't do it.
Can't.
Could you merge Wigan and Saints? No, you can't. And it's not going to happen.
Yeah,
and nobody wants League.
the old Cumbria World War's been going on for forever, hasn't it?
And that seems to be the barrier. They don't want to let go of those clubs, but you've got to let others in. And that seems to be the problem. Maybe it is the right way it's going now, where teams in Cornwall, teams in Midlands are starting to come up through the ranks. I mean, at the end of the day, Toronto did it, so hopefully.
I think, obviously they've got the finances completely wrong, and the wrong guy was at the top, but they nailed it. The word on the street was that Super League players loved going to Toronto. They were it was like party time,
Well, did you see the crowds? They
They didn't even know what was going on. Touch that, no thing. What is it? Try.
People wanted to go to Toronto to watch a game. It wasn't. Yeah, people love going to watch Catalans away because it's a party atmosphere. But people wanted to go to Toronto. It's Canada.
Yeah.
They signed Sonny Bill Williams.
Yeah.
I have my own views about the guy. Might be a bit controversial.
Let's hear it. Worst case, cut it out. Best case, keep it
in. Chaser. He'll switch calls at the drop of.
I don't think that's controversial. I think that's out as it is.
I struggled to get on board with him as a player. All right, he's retired now, but I did struggle to get on board with him as a player because one minute he was a league player, one minute he was a union player. It depended who was playing the World Cup. and where he could get the medal.
It's very true, but there's not a lot of money in rugby league and more so in rugby union. So if the opportunity arises to earn that money, then I'll take it.
Because it's a short career as well.
Yeah, of course it is.
But, you know,
So what should you have done? Just as devil's advocate, what should you? One club man.
I'm a league man.
Yeah.
I'm a league man. Sonny Bill Williams was a league man. You know, and he became...
Was he a boxer first?
I don't know, he might have been a boxer first.
But I don't know, generally, I don't know.
I think he always used to say, I'm a leaguey, really, didn't he?
Yeah.
But you're right, there's loads of money at rugby union. And, you know, with the short career, why wouldn't you?
You can't blame anybody for going for a payday, really, can you?
But you've also got to sort of look at it and you've got to admire it. I mean, anybody who can play different sports and be so good at them all. I mean, it was a national champion boxer, if not internationally very highly thought of. Rugby Union World Cup winner. I don't think he did win a Rugby League World Cup, did he? So they skipped that almost, didn't they?
Yeah, missed that.
So, but could have been, you know.
We're going a bit off track anyway. We're talking about the Midlands, though, just quickly. IMG are potentially going to rip the rule book up again, aren't they? So we don't know what Super League's going to look like in a couple of years. You know,
Do you think, or is that just hype?
It could be just hype, but it needs something to happen to it. So there's rumours of it going back to licensing. It could be 2 leagues of 10. It could be, who knows? You never know. In a couple of years' time, they might look at a team like the Hurricanes and go, right, yeah, your stadium, bang, better than most Super League teams. Your crowds, they might not be there yet, but they're developing. So that junior setup, if you know Midlands clubs are feeding, you don't know what it's going to look like in a couple of years. And I'm not going to slag off a old mining town, you know, like a Featherstone or something, but they're never going to be. They're never going to be a massive supported club, are they? Not a massive city club. So I think they do need to rip it up and be a bit controversial and go for it.
But what do you do with your traditional clubs then? What do you do with... I've heard this said before, you know, who we're going to bring into Super League. I hope it's not Featherstone, it's just another little mining town. They love the Rugby League. They're established to some degree.
Yeah. I did really be picking on Featherstone. I might have to go there one day. So.
You know, I've played there in a charity game, got a warm welcome. But we're just using them as an example. I'm not picking on them either. You know, but what do you do with them if you take that away from them?
Well, I think they've got to be there, but why can't IMG expand it so it's 2 divisions of 10 and aim to be in these big cities, in your Manchesters and your Birminghams and your Edinburghs, because they've tried it and it's just in some places I don't think they've quite got it right, but all I'm saying is for the Midlands we may be going somewhere.
There needs to be a long-term plan, and the problem from my point of view, the problem that with everything they try with Rugby League, they don't stick to a plan. They do it and then they change it. They do consultations, everybody tells them what they want to do, and they do it for a couple of years and they change it. They never do it for long enough to do. They think in franchise long enough. They think going back to promotion relegation, and now talking about changing that. There needs to be a long-term plan, because if you are going to start these big city clubs outside of the regions, and probably the way that what you do with these traditional areas is twin them with these places. The same way that Barcelona have camps in South America to find the talent. It should be the same if the Hurricanes are already doing it, taking players from all over the country. They need to be making arrangements with these clubs as the feeder in clubs, if that's what you do.
Bit more like a dual registration system.
Yeah, absolutely. And what goes on in Australia as well with clubs feeding into bigger clubs even from different areas. I mean, lots of the Melbourne feeder is out of Queensland, which obviously is miles away.
Well, the NRL have never really changed it, have they? They've gone, these are our teams, that's how it is. And the rest of the teams are, the sort of the New South Wales Cup and stuff like that, they feed into the NRL clubs, don't they?
Absolutely, but of course it's the number one sport in Australia. So they get all the talent. But we have to have something that if we're going to expand it, and there is the potential, because I was told when I started playing rugby league that in Birmingham there was 3 magnifiers and an Ellery Hanley sitting there waiting to be discovered. The chances are they'd never be discovered.
Yeah.
The chances are they'd never even hear of rugby league. And when you look at the size of the city, the size of the conurbation, we should be a main source of talent for rugby league. But we're not going to do it with one club at Birmingham, Ravens, Coventry out there, Telford a bit further out there. We need to have a lot of investment in the area. Or we need, like the Hurricanes, a really strong professional side that people say, this is your pathway to go. So when we've got a great player, we need to be sending them to George with them to go and have a go, rather than guys from Hull coming down to play for them.
Sounds like we've cracked it then, doesn't it?
Yeah.
but
Can someone write this up? Because we'll submit
Think
it.
about it though, like you just said, Carl, the Australians, the bulk, not all, but the bulk of professional clubs are centred around Sydney.
Yeah.
Most of the NRL is centred around Sydney, but then you've got Queensland, and yes, Queensland is a massive place, but you've now got a few professional teams in Queensland, including 2 in Brisbane now. So they are geared around the cities, and like Spaff just said, you're using those resources, aren't you? You're drawing on what's available rather than having things dotted about. I mean, we drive an hour here in this country, and we think we've been on a long journey. Them guys will drive for 8 hours, and that was all right. That was nothing, and that's a different mindset as well. So what am I trying to say? What I'm trying to say is we are parochial, aren't we? In terms of Telford is miles away from Redditch. It's not really that far, but if you can concentrate that around Birmingham and tap into any resources that there might be, you could make more of the talent available.
Let's just bring it back to N.E.W Ravens, because we went way off. I loved the conversation. It was brilliant. But we ended up
wrongs, weren't we, Rugby League?
We were talking about Redditch, and we ended up in Queensland. So, what's new? Obviously we've got a little bit of news there from your club, but what other stuff are you looking forward to this season? Have you got particular players that you want to mention, and kind of celebrate them, or even volunteers, other staff that are doing great stuff?
I think mainly just the coaches that we have are so committed. I mean, we've got first team players that go and play on Saturday, then give up their Sunday mornings as well to come and actually coach the young players, and those kind of players, those kind of people we just can't do without. Again, my wife was saying earlier on, she can't wait for the season to start again, because that's when she sees all her friends, really. So, part of the club mentality that we try to create, that really is the best time of year to be playing rugby.
Do you have much of a social?
No.
No, we don't at Telford. Well, Telford doesn't. No.
Sorry, I thought you were going to be social life now. Do we have much social? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think one of the things the first team pride themselves on is being the last team out of anywhere we go, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
So, I know.
Win, lose or draw, we'll be the last out of the back.
That's a whole podcast episode, isn't it? Like the importance of a social, aspect to the club. But what benefit have you seen from that? More cohesion, I suppose, with players. And
well, just people understand each other, and when we go and play in teams up north, you see lads that play together since they were kids, and that's what we hope will happen for our lads. I mean, I know my lads 3, and 3 or 4 of the other first team players have all got kids the same age. I hope they'll all grow up and play together, because when I go and play Masters now, I see guys that played since they first started playing rugby league, and that's what we hope for. And it's just fun. That's what we try to create, just a fun atmosphere, and we do long for the summer to be able to go and just see our friends. My son keeps saying to me now, when I'm going to see my rugby friends, can't wait. So, lots of people say we do a lot put out a lot of time and effort, but I always say it's completely selfish what I do.
Yeah.
I do it.
It's funny, Fred said the same thing. Fred Baker in the last episode, he said, "Look, I'm not a fool. I'm not stupid. I love what I do."
Yeah, absolutely. It is hard, and I listened to Fred last week, and I know it is hard, but there's nothing like. I had a bad injury a few years ago, and I thought I'd have to stop playing. Luckily, I managed to get over it. But trying to imagine what it's like not walking out of changing rooms or not watching your juniors go out, not just enjoying being on the side of the pitch. Just can't imagine at all. So,
I just want to touch on, you just mentioned Masters Rugby a second ago. So have you got a team that's a Masters team, or is it just a couple of games a season?
Yeah, we haven't really got a full team. One of the nice things about Masters is it's very much like kids' festivals. You turn up and you can play.
Yeah.
We've got a group of people who enjoy playing Masters, and we generally go and turn up at the festivals and make up the numbers or join with another team. We've spent a long time joining with North Wales. They've got their own group, which is good. We keep trying to get a full Midlands team to go somewhere and do it, but unfortunately, it's a difficult one. And part of the success of Masters up north is because it's less regular, it's less commitment, whereas for us, that's still the case. However, it's more of a challenge to get all the people together on certain weekends, because we know rather than an afternoon playing rugby like it is in the Heartlands, it's still a commitment. It's a whole day because you've got 5 hours travelling most of the time. So it is still difficult to get all together. But we do the big festivals. We go to Blackpool, we go to Yorkshire Festival, try and go to Crossfields to their festival as well.
Is there any other teams in the Midlands that do a Masters team, or is it?
Well, we had a game between us and Nottingham.
Right.
So we managed to get 2 teams together that day, but unfortunately it happened just before COVID, and unfortunately that hasn't really got back together yet. So they certainly have a number of players to be able to do it, but again for them it's trying to get them all on one day.
Well, I'll jump in here. Obviously me and Craig are involved in the Raiders. I know for certain they're trying to get Masters team together this year as part of their 20-year celebration, so that's potentially something you can
absolutely, that'd be great.
You can tie up with them and go from there. Just quickly talking about the Masters Rugby, somebody like me who doesn't really know what it's like. There's certain rules in there, different coloured shorts, and just explain it, because I honestly don't know.
So Masters Rugby is not rugby league for old guys. It's actually a completely variable contact game.
Yeah.
So between 35 and 40, you wear white shorts, full contact. Although the ethos is not to go and wash people, you should be running the gaps, and you can be penalised for just completely running over people.
Right.
40 to 50 is then black shorts, then black shorts, which is basically the same, but just distinguishes between the slightly younger people. Then you get to 50 and you go into red shorts. So the red shorts is effectively a grab tackle, where if you've slowed down the contact, slowed down the
shot to stop sort of thing,
the pace, the referee will call held and you play the ball. Then you get to 60 and you've got gold shorts with tags on. So if they get tagged, they stop and play the ball. If they are tackling, they just touch you. Simple as that. So your red shorters are an absolute asset to you, because one, it's hard to get hold of those tags, and they're often one of the best people to send into the traffic. On the other hand, they're also dead easy to tackle people. And our chairman John is an absolute demon, a man in his 60s in gold short who is still fast, still agile, and will just go up. Remember going and playing against Lee Miners, who were a great outfit, mainly 35 to 40, so just come out of open age, coming on, John's just tapping him on the shoulder, and they were getting so frustrated by him because they couldn't go anywhere, they couldn't use the physicality against this gold shorter who just kept touching them, and that was it.
What about people that are 65? What colour shorts do they have, like grey?
I'm not even 51 yet.
Okay, you want to tell your face. Sorry, a little segue.
It's an amazing game. You would think it's really confusing, but
Sounds slightly confusing, I'll be honest with you.
But the referees are so good, and the referees talk to you during the game. So they'll say, "There's a goal short in front of you. You need to be."
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's a special course to referee it, and they are really good.
Dogs jumping in.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
The main thing about it is it's all the great stuff of playing rugby league without the bruises and the injuries, because the only reason you hurt the day afterwards is through your own effort. You don't get hit the same. You don't get any real nastiness. It's fun rugby, simple as that, and it is amazing. I remember a few years ago saying to people when we first heard about Masters, we need to start this because when I have to retire, I don't want to have to go and play rugby union. So this has got to be done, and that's it. I mean, I always used to think I want to play until I'm 40, and the reality is I don't ever want to stop playing now because Masters allows you to do that. I played with guys in their 90s.
Yeah.
It's just unbelievable.
Wow.
Yeah. So amazing.
Yeah, I mean, we've got connections in Siddle Masters up in Halifax and then Dodder Masters in Barnsley. You know, we're already sort of thinking about a 3-way round robin, you know, if we can tie another club in there as well, or even just share players. It's got to be a bit of a winner, like, so.
Yeah, give us a shout. We're more than happy to come, and we'll just come join in wherever. So, because opportunities to play a little close to home.
It'd be good.
Yeah.
Cool. Anything else that we should have asked you?
I don't know really.
If you're enjoying the show, we need your help. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our podcast to help us grow and reach more people. Your support means everything to us, and it helps us continue to bring you fresh and entertaining rugby league content. So whether you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else, take a moment to show us some love. Thanks for tuning in, and now back to the show.
Okay, moving over then. So you might hear a definite increase in the quality of the audio. I take full responsibility for that and apologise online. Graham, so over to you. Just talk a little bit about what you've got coming up. Obviously, you sat there very proud wearing the MNDA shirt, and you've brought another one with us. So just give us a bit of a rundown of the things that you're up to, what your overall aims are, and then what you've got coming up later in the year.
Well, my other sport, apart from rugby league, is running. Rugby league will always be my team sport, but as far as participation is concerned, I run. And so going back to Rob Burrow being diagnosed in late December 2019 with motor neuron disease, it was almost, for me, it might sound cheesy, it was almost like a call to arms. Because I think in the rugby league community, people talk about the rugby league family, but it's absolutely true. Me and Spaff have touched on the difference between Wigan and Saints fans and how we won't get behind each other, but really, in many respects we do, don't we?
Well, there's a mutual respect, isn't there?
Of course there is.
Yeah.
Of course there is. That's why you can stand with opposition fans at any given game and have banter and have a chat and have a pint in it. Rob was diagnosed in 2019 and it was like, right, what can I do? Well, I can run. Rob can't, so I'm going to run for him. And quite quickly, Kevin Sinfield took up the reins, as we all know, with his own challenges, but encouraging other people to get involved as well. And I think that's how it all started with me. Following on from Kev's first 7 in 7 challenge, which was his 7 marathons in 7 days, he was asking people to come up with their own 7 in 7s. So I came up with my first 7 in 7, which was quite simple and not a massive challenge for someone who can run. And it was just simply to run a minimum of 7.
King Dog's desperate, isn't it? For some love. You can chuck her down, Spaff, if you...
No worries.
Just to run a minimum of 10k a day for 7 days and do 70k in a week, which is pretty big mileage for the average runner in a week, but it's doable. But since then, everything I've done where there's a sponsorship opportunity in terms of running, and the thing that is also as vitally important to the MND Association, which is awareness. I've always taken those opportunities to raise the awareness and raise whatever I can in terms of sponsorship to hopefully one day work towards a cure for MND, because there isn't one, and also to support families who are living with it, be that people who have MND or the families who are caring for them.
So, any idea of how much you've raised to date? Tell me,
To date, I'm just about to tip over the £7,000 mark.
Oh, amazing.
Fantastic.
My current online Just Giving page is at about 5-6, but through me, I did have a previous page, and through funds I've raised that have been donated through other people's pages, it's just about going to pop £7,000 any time now.
So you've done your 7 in 7.
Yeah.
And what you're heading towards now then? So what's the next challenge?
The next is Leeds Marathon. It's actually called the Rob Burrow Leeds Marathon. It's already had, I think, in excess of 12,000 entrants, the vast majority of whom are either running for MNDA or for Leeds Hospitals Charity, who are the other major player in the fight against MND, who are building a hospital as an MND-specific treatment centre. So, yeah, I've got, 3 7 in 7s under my belt now. My last one was 7 hours on a treadmill on the 7th of November last year to basically pump out as much mileage as I could in 7 hours. Managed to get about 38 miles out outside Palmer's Cafe in Shrewsbury, who've been one of my main supporters. Leeds Marathon next. And after that, I've come up with my own Trans-Pennine Ultra Marathon, where I'm going to be running from the N.E.W Stadium in Wigan to Headingley Stadium in Leeds.
That's probably the right way to go, that. Out of Wigan and into Leeds.
Lancashire, Yorkshire.
Yeah.
Only to see Wigan beat Leeds on the 8th of September when I arrive. That's the plan.
So, just quickly talking about MNDA, motor neuron disease. I wasn't really aware of it until obviously the Rob Burrow incident happened. Do you know? You may not be able to answer this, but do you know? Is there any links with Rugby League to motor neuron disease? The only people I've really heard of who had it, obviously Rob Burrow, Doddy who was a rugby union player on it. I know Sam Burgess's dad had it. Do you know if have they found any links with it, with Rugby League, head injuries or anything like that?
I don't think they've found a link. They haven't found a cause, really.
Right.
There doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason to it. I have read and heard 1 or 2 articles speculating, saying, are elite sports people more predisposed to it?
Right.
Asking that question.
Yeah.
Because there's been other athletes from the world of athletics as well who have been diagnosed with MND, so it might not be head injury specific, but elite fitness.
Athletes specific or something, yeah.
But maybe there's a predisposition. I don't think anybody really knows yet.
Okay.
But yeah, you're right, in as much as, Rob Burrow, Doddy Weir, Stephen Darby, football player.
Right.
And then if we look back, Mike Gregory.
Yeah.
Wasn't really talked about at the time, was it? People would talk about, he got bitten by something in Australia years ago on a tour. You know, has that left him with something? You know, it was motor neuron disease in the end.
There's definitely, like you said, there's definitely a high number of athletes.
Yeah. When you consider as well, like you say, though, you hadn't heard about it, there are, at any one time, there's about 5,000 people in the UK living with MND.
Right.
About 6 people a day are diagnosed with MND. It's not massive, but sadly it's big enough to need, you know, the ability to diagnose.
And that's one thing that the rugby league community's done really well, isn't it? The last couple of years, they've brought it to the forefront.
Yeah.
Everybody's aware of it now. You don't have to turn BBC on and you're seeing Kevin Sinfield running God knows how many miles, being programs dedicated to it. With, you know, the rugby league community's really shed a light on it, really.
Absolutely.
And I think we've been able to watch it unfold, haven't we, with Rob Burrow? You know what I mean? I remember that tribute game they played. Did you all watch it?
Yeah.
You know, they brought some of the legends of the game, and he was off. He was a couple of yards off. His eye coordination was off. You know what I mean? He was starting to bubble up and cry, and you could see that there was a bit of decline. You fast forward 12 months, he's in a wheelchair, you know, can barely speak. We've just seen it unfold in front of our eyes, and that's really...
it's really
home for me. Like.
It's hit home for everybody, hasn't it?
One of the scary things I think about it when we've watched it is, again, Rob, seeing this decline with Rob, but seeing the amazing support he's got around him. And then you see that there are people that in everyday life that are diagnosed with this and are not having that support at all. And I know Kevin Sinfield always says this when he's doing these 7 in 7 things. We're here not just for Rob, but for the people that don't get the same highlight. And you think to yourself, I mean, you know, don't get me wrong, it can't be good. It can't be great for anybody at all. But I just can't imagine what it's like living an everyday life and suddenly being thrown into that situation. So.
And I think that's where awareness comes into it, isn't it? It's raising the profile in the same way that we've talked this evening about raising the profile of rugby league in the Midlands and expansionism. It's raising the profile. It's making people aware so that they get on board, you know, make people aware what MND is and raise funds that can help support people, you know. It's vastly underfunded by the government. You know, a couple of years ago, they pledged £50 million to the Motor Neuron Disease Association into research. 18 months later, still no sign of it. You know, administrations within government changes. So the association and campaigners have had to go back to the government and say, you know, what about this 50 million? You know, and eventually they've said, we did pledge it. You're going to get it. But without it, the research can't go on.
Well, thanks to you, people making people aware and raising money for it. You also do a rugby league shirt day or something that you've got a shirt that you're selling. Do you want to quickly tell us about that?
Yeah. I mean, this is a great way for the rugby league community to get involved in raising awareness and funds again. You know, it's flying the orange and blue flag as well as raising funds. The 21st of June every year is Global MND Awareness Day.
Right.
In Australia for a few years now, they've had Rugby League Jersey Day for another charity. And I thought there's an opportunity to get on the back of. So the idea is 21st of June, ask people to wear this year's MND awareness shirt, which is currently being manufactured and provided by my mate Chris Superfly Walker at Vineware. It's named after his Weimaraner. I always want to say Vineware.
Right. So where can people get hold of this shirt if they want to buy a version of it this year?
Yeah, on Facebook, Vineware or Superfly Sports Flags is Chris's other business.
We'll put links.
Yeah, we'll put that out.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. There is a shirt. There is a vest for training in, running in, ideal for rugby league and for running. Something else is in the pipeline as well. So there's going to be a third version coming out soon.
Is that it? I'm not getting told what it is.
It's a basketball vest.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know whether Chris wanted me to announce this yet, but
we'll ask him and we'll cut it out.
There's going to be a basketball vest. So that's aimed at people, more for casual going on holiday rather than a running vest.
Yeah.
30 quid a piece, including postage. £10 of that. So a whole third of that is going to the Motor Neuron Disease Association. Chris is making zero on it. This is a guy who has a full-time job as well as running his businesses. He's making nothing on it. He's covering the cost of manufacture and the postage, and everything else is going to the association.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And you've had, so compared to last year, you had quite a bit of success this year, like growth in the actual, the day. So, what's been different? You've sold many more shirts this year, haven't you? Yeah,
straight away. Again, it's that marketing thing again, isn't it? Chris has got behind it, and it's not just been left down to me to market it through, my Facebook group is Rugby League Buy Sell Swap, which is aimed at collectors, people who want rugby shirts, other memorabilia, and that's mainly how I marketed it last year, and then through different rugby league groups and running groups. But because Chris has business pages as well, he's really got behind it and he's really pushed it. So the first batch, which I think he opened the sales for a week and he was getting so bombarded he had to close the order books after a week. Sold 32 shirts. Second, so it's 320 quid straight away. 80 quid from the second batch, which was very briefly opened. And then there's going to be another batch of orders available mid-March. So anybody looking to buy one can see them online at Vineware or Rugby League Buy Sell Swap, and they're going to be available mid-March.
Well, obviously, like I said, we'll put links to your Just Giving page and your the shirt sales page as well in the bottom of this. So anyone that wants to get behind that can do so. Yeah. And we'll check in again as we're getting close towards the Trans-Pennine Marathon and the Ultra and see how prep's going and get a little bit of video there and see it unfold. So thanks for sharing that. We're going to move over now to our fun prediction round. We'll fly through this because we've already been rattling on for quite a while. So, Karl,
do you want to go through last week's results?
No, because I told you I'm shockingly bad, and I was absolutely embarrassed by it.
Fred came out on top. He got 5 right. Matt got the 3, and we're even Stevens at 4 each. Yeah, so
everything to play for.
All to play for this week. Right, okay. First game is a Thursday night game, which is Salford v Hull KR. Salford beat Lee last week. Fantastic game. I don't know if anybody watched that. The atmosphere was absolutely bouncing at Lee. They're doing so much right. But Salford was too strong for them. The Salford looked really good, actually. I thought they did. And then Hull KR obviously beat your men last week, which I predicted. No, I didn't. I got it wrong. I should have gone with that prediction.
I predicted it.
Craig did.
Yeah. But I think you said, I can't see past Wigan.
No.
I was like, which Wigan are you watching then?
Yeah.
Right, okay. Salford v Hull KR then. Jace, we'll go to you. Who do you think?
I didn't see the Salford game last week, but I did see a lot of the Hull KR, and they were massively impressive. Apart from the fact they've been looking good for a couple of seasons at times, and they seem to be getting it together. Hull KR for me.
I'm going to go Hull KR as well. I think a Hull KR team that turned over a Wigan team last week will be riding high this week. Salford could win on the day, but I think it's got to be Hull KR.
Hull KR for me. I was going to go Salford just to even it up a little bit, but I can't see.
Yeah, Hull KR did look good, didn't they? I'm going to go Hull KR.
Oh, clean sweep, right? Okay.
Okay, Friday night game then. We got a couple of games Friday night. So first one, we got Huddersfield. This will be their first game because they should have been playing Saints last week, which was a bye. And then we got the high-flying Warrington who demoralised the Leeds Rhinos. Jace, how about you first?
Well, obviously, Huddersfield unknown at the moment, but they were looking pretty good at the end of last season, and they've got some real good players. And I think back to myself that my mate from university always says, it's going to be Warrington's year this year. It never is.
It's always Warrington's year.
Exactly. So I think they might get a little bit too confident. I'll go for Huddersfield.
Graham?
Yeah. Oh, sorry, jumping the gun. Excited.
I can't see past Warrington. Again, I think off the back of last week, for me, last week, Warrington Leeds should have been more of an evenly matched game than it was. So for Warrington to have beat Leeds again, I think they'll have a bit of confidence under their belt. Huddersfield can be a strong team on the day. They can have a third of a season, 2/3 of a season quite strong and then drop off a bit. But yeah, I'm going for Warrington.
I'm going to go Huddersfield to win. Jake Connor, man of the match.
Do you know what?
If he's playing. Is he playing? I don't even see the team sheet.
Get yellow carded.
Yeah, well, yeah, he might get yellow carded.
I fancy Huddersfield as well.
Yeah.
I think it'll be a close one. That it's good. It could go either way, couldn't it? But I'm going to Huddersfield. So the next game, same night, is we got the Rhinos versus Hull FC. Jace, you could go first again.
Well, uncle and nephew coaches against each other.
Yeah, of course.
Interesting one.
Yeah.
Leeds were terrible, weren't they? Come on.
Yeah, they were, but having been a Saints fan for so long, I've seen them be terrible one week and then beat my team the next week. So in a final as well. So I don't know. That could go either way. I don't think you saw the right Leeds last week. I think they're better than that.
They start slow every year, though, don't they?
I think you find Hull will probably do it this week on form at the moment.
So you're going Hull?
I'll say Hull, yeah.
Go on then, Graham. Who you got?
I'm going to go for Leeds. I'm going to contradict what I've said for the last two predictions. I should be saying Hull riding high after last week because they had a good win against Castleford. I'm going to go for Leeds on the same basis that I think Rowan Smith has got something that previous coaches haven't had.
He's a very good coach.
He's a very good coach.
Yeah.
Look what he did with Leeds at the back end of last year. He won't be happy with what happened last week. Leeds are better than that. I'm going for Leeds.
Controversially, I'm going to say Hull FC.
Wow.
Because Leeds...
Not like backing your team, is it?
The second week in a row I've not backed them. I said Warrington were going to win last week as well. I think they'll come good round 5. So I think it's going to be a narrow win to Hull FC.
I'll quote you on that. I'm also going Hull FC. Yeah. I think that's my prediction. Hull FC. Yeah, Hull. Right. Wigan v Wakefield. Obviously a wounded Wigan against Wakey.
Well, I've got a Saints fan next to me sat here laughing because I think he's probably thinking the same thing as me. Obviously, I'm going to back my own team, but realistically, I would back them anyway against Wakefield. What we just said about Rowan Smith not being happy with what Leeds did last week, there's not a cat in hell's chance that Matty Peat is going to be happy with what Wigan did. Obviously, I've seen some posts on social media this week from groups like Ancient and Loyal. One quote said something like they need to spend more time on the training ground and less time in the hairdressers.
there was some funny haircuts going on. That was the first thing my missus said when we turned the game on. She went, "There's some right mullets going on in here. What's going on with Wigan lads and all lads?"
I mean, myself and Amanda and Amber went up to.
Can't remember.
Anyway, should we start again?
You went up to a game anyway.
Yeah, we went up the pre-season game. And they played well. I can't see them losing to Wakefield, and I can't see Matty Peat being happy at all with how they went last week. Apparently, French and Field didn't turn up, and again, that's not like them. So Wigan.
I'm going to go Wakey. I think Wigan again have got a couple of losses. What are you laughing at? What? You don't understand my reasoning?
No, you've just gone for all the opposite to what I've expected. But
Right,
Proof will be in the pudding, won't it? When
Yeah,
you see?
okay, come on, don't let me down.
I'm going Wigan. I can't see them turning out like that again. Wakefield did all right against Catalan. Better than I expected, to be honest with you, but I think Wigan will come out all guns blazing this week, and I think they'll absolutely demolish Wakefield. I've not been very complimentary for Wakefield last couple of weeks.
No.
Said they were going to get relegated.
Or Featherstone.
They're not going to let me back in West Yorkshire. Right, the Saturday game is Catalan v Lee. It's at Catalan on Sky Sports. Jace?
It's hard work to go to Catalan for whoever. I can't see past Catalan at all.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, I'm on board with that. I will even go as far as to say Catalan top 3 in Super League this year.
They'll be up there, I would have
They'll
thought.
be up there.
Yeah, I'm going Catalan again.
Yeah,
Catalan. I think it'd
easy
be
one.
Yeah,
And
quite easy.
a point on Lee just while we're talking about them, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
And we've talked all night about marketing, haven't we? What a great piece of marketing. People are slating them left, right and centre.
Everyone's talking.
Everyone's talking about them, yeah.
Yeah. You know.
It's the red eyes on the nipples that get me.
They're amazing.
Well,
Like the fuck have they done there?
They announced the mascot, didn't they, last week?
Yeah.
And said, "Oh, we're announcing our mascot." I half expected to roll a dog out or something like that, you know. But on TV, it looked absolutely brilliant, didn't it? They had
Did you
live
see
bands on.
when they were talking to Gareth O'Brien after the game, and they said, someone said, "Oh, I expected to see a leopard," and Jenna Brooks said, "No, there was a leopard," like meaning someone dressed up as a leopard. He was like, "What's that?"
Well,
I honestly believe there was a leopard.
I expected to see a jaguar because that's another great piece of marketing. They use a picture of a jaguar instead of a leopard. But look at the publicity. Lolook at the publicity they've had. You know.
Yeah. And I heard, I can't remember who it was that was saying it, but they said Lee have always been that like
small town in Wigan.
Yeah, exactly. And then to be called Lee Centurions, very similar, similar colour scheme to
Red and white hoops.
Yeah. To break away from that is probably a stroke of genius. So,
They should have gone all out though, shouldn't they? At the start of the season, the original designs for the kit were just black and white leopard kit, and it actually looked all right. And then the fans got involved, and before you knew it, it had red on it again.
Before you knew it, had red eyes on the nipples.
and it was.
I'll never unsee that now.
And apparently the kit was based on the kind of onesies they normally see down Asda in Lee on any given Thursday afternoon.
With or without the rollers in the air.
Either. It's personal choice.
God, that's us.
Clean sweep for Catalan then, yeah.
Yep.
We'll move on. Right, the Sunday game, this will be the most interesting one. Castleford at home against the Saints.
Yeah, we've got to mention Saints, like beating Penrith.
Brilliant.
Unbelievable.
Absolutely brilliant, wasn't it?
Incredible game. Did you see the rain that was bouncing off the pitch? It was incredible. So,
that would suit a British team because
I did think that.
New South Wales doesn't rain that much.
Well, that was what the Aussies were getting in nice and early, wasn't it? They needed some excuses straight. Oh, it's raining, that's why,
Try telling that to Brisbane
to
Broncos.
be fair,
or
when it does
North
come
Queensland.
down there, it does come down. So
Well, I thought that they were saying, "Oh, yeah, Saints will be used to playing in this," and I looked at it, it was like a tropical storm. I've never seen a tropical storm in St Helens. It was absolutely hammering it down, wasn't it? Electrical storms. So I just like Saints were fantastic.
You've never seen them clouds hanging over Billings Hill, though, have you?
I've seen the clouds at Odsall when they come in.
Pretty damn similar, mate, I tell you.
But it was brilliant, wasn't it, for Super League? Just to see us beating the Aussies fantastic.
Great for me, great for the British game. Of course it is.
Were all the Wigan fans right behind them?
Well, it's a talking point, isn't it? Were the Wigan fans behind?
Well, I'm sat opposite one. Was you cheering St Helens on or not? No.
Did you watch it? Did you watch the game?
No, I didn't. To be fair, I didn't see it. I was working. Right. And it's a moral dilemma. It's a massive moral dilemma.
It's not.
For me,
it was Britain v Australia. That was it.
But it wasn't. It
was.
Penrith.
No,
I'm not massively into Penrith when it comes to NRL either. So.
Look, I don't like Leeds. But if they were playing against the Aussies, I'd have supported Leeds.
Would Saints
as a one-off?
Wigan, that's the question.
I don't know. Let's put it out. If you're a Saints fan, comment below. Perhaps we'll even have a little poll and see what the outcome is.
I think as a Saints fan, I've been to plenty of World Club challenges with Wigan playing.
Yeah.
In fact,
All right, rub it in.
first one I ever went to was against the Broncos at Central Park, and you get behind the British team. I know full well when I've been to Leeds before, I've always wound my mate up, who's an avid Rhinos fan, by wearing an Australian shirt, but I didn't really cheer for them at all. I was so glad to see Leeds win and so glad to see Wigan win.
Don't you think it's about time we hold the British game in a bit higher regard, though? Because they were absolutely slating us with the Aussies before that game.
They always will, in any sport.
But they seem to think that the NRL is so much better than Super League. And
the NRL is so much better than Super League.
No, I don't think it is.
No, it is.
Because you're talking about money, and the players are getting paid a lot more, and the profile of the players is higher. But are they so much better at rugby league than Britain? No, I don't believe it.
Across the board, they are. And it was proved back when they had the
World Club Challenge, that was
all the teams.
That was donkeys years ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it was, and it's still the same now. The reality is, you could you look at when they did it a few years ago, and they brought three teams over to play just 4 runners a couple of nights before, and all the British teams got beat. I mean, you've got to look at it at what it's like in Australia. It's the first sport.
It's a culture, isn't it?
They get the preference on all the athletes, and that's what it is. We can match them at the top level when we have 18 players fit. But as soon as we've got less than our full complement as a nation or as a team or whatever, we haven't got the backup. Let's face it, back years ago when the Super League were awesome, they sent the second team over and they still won the World Cup. They can send a team, people that don't get picked for Australia, to play for Samoa and get to the final. You know, it is so much strength in depth. That's the difference.
Saints v Castleford. So we
Saints v Castleford.
We've decided that Super League's now the superior competition over the NRL. So,
well, it's been superior since 1987 because I was at Central Park when Wigan beat Manly. I was there. I was one of the 36,000 crammed into that 30,000.
Well, the only proof we've got is we've played one NRL team in the NRL this year and we've won one. So therefore, Super League's on top. Until next time, we'll come again. So who have we got? Castleford v Saints. They're going to say it's going to suffer a hangover, and it's a long journey back, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's too much to do that journey and go there. And to be honest, Saints often lose at Castleford.
Yeah, well.
So there's been a record of that happening quite a lot. So I'll go Cat.
Cast narrow defeat last week, weren't they? They only just lost. So, yeah, I'm going Castleford as well.
I'm going to go Castleford as well. I think you'd be daft to not back Saints most of the time. But I think with what they've just been through and the journey home, possibly a slightly weakened team due to that. And despite all the fantastic publicity Cass have had this week through Mr. Westerman, I think they'll remit.
Just quickly, did anyone hear the chant that they were saying? I don't repeat the chant, but did you hear the chant they were singing to? Oh, you got to just get online and search it up and listen to it. It's genius.
It was
genius.
British,
I told Paula.
British comedy at its best, wasn't it?
I told
Did you
Paula.
have to explain it?
And you don't have to explain the chant, but. It's like, and she was like no interest in, and she was devastated for him, like, because of this chant. You got to listen to it. Anyway,
have you got?
Me? I'm going to say Cass, but I'm going to say Cass because in my head, I'm hoping Saints have had such a bender that they're just fucking useless for the next 2 weeks because they've just hung one on that bad. That's what's going on in my brain. So Catalans. Okay, so we'll see where we end up by the end of the. No, sorry, not Catalan, Castleford. Oh,
yeah,
Castleford.
Yeah, Castleford.
Okay, so we'll see where we are by the end of
north of England, not south of France.
Okay, into our extra time. So we always ask our guests to set a question for our oncoming guests. So Matt and Fred left a couple of questions. I'm going to pose them to each. We'll keep it quite brief and to the point, but I think they're really, really good questions. The first one being, do you think kids starting league should be matched on size instead of age? So that's purely your own opinion, perhaps from your own experience. Either one. Any of you can go.
Interesting question for me, that. I look back at my childhood playing rugby league, and I was never daft enough to make it a success. When I said daft enough, I think, the best players have probably got a screw loose. I left Widnes Tigers, went to Blackbrook, got selected once for St Helens Town team because I was playing for Blackbrook, and then got absolutely hammered by Bobby Goulding because I'd left his club, didn't like me. So I had a scrum half battering me as a prop, and I remember it to this day, and I remind him of it sometimes on Facebook. So yeah, I think it's got potential, but I think, I don't know, it's a tough one for me. That success in the game at that age, I think, is down to who you are as well as your ability and your size. So I think it's a three-way. I think it's a three-way thing. I think it's how you're made.
What do you think, Spaff?
It's a difficult one because I look at so many small players who are great players and have played all the way through their junior stuff, being smaller, and that's made them what they are.
Yeah.
I actually think the disadvantage is actually being big.
Yeah.
And rather than being a problem for smaller players having to go against larger players, and I see what goes on in New Zealand where they're playing weight grades, and because of the difference in size, especially when some of the Islanders are playing, who seem to develop much quicker than some of the European kids. But I see the disadvantage being for the big kids. Certainly, the research has shown us with this look at the embedded pathway stuff again. They look at the first quartile kids, the kids of the old first 3 months of the school year, go further quicker and then drop off much quicker through their age groups. So basically, when everybody catches up the size and they haven't got that size advantage, suddenly they lose the love for the game. Whereas the ones in the lower quartiles, the ones that are generally smaller, generally stick with the game, and the drop-off is far less. So it's a different argument. And yes, there's definitely some advantage of playing weight-related or size-related stuff, but not for the reason that people think of the smaller players. It's more for the larger players. But regardless, we should be challenging all kids on size, on skills, on everything. And if putting a small lad against a big lad to tackle, or vice versa, that's just part of the challenge we should be exposing them to. So I would say, as long as they're coached in the right way, there's nothing wrong with different sizes. But I can see advantages for doing it as well. Yeah.
And I think when you read about Rob Burrow, if you read about Rob Burrow from a child, not just in his Super League career, people talk about how he punched above his weight, literally. What a big hitter he was. We've seen him go up against bigger guys in fist fights. It's not always the bigger lads who win, is it? It's what you're made of.
I don't think it should be matched on size. I think it should just be age range, and that's that.
I think does this also come back to society as a whole as well? The suggestion that we might want to match people on size. Are we mollycoddling?
I don't know. Are we mollycoddling, or are we trying to progress the game? And the development of and hold on to players and player welfare. There's probably a load of aspects of, I think it's great that someone's raised the question on,
You could debate it for...
Yeah, you could debate it for another 3 hours until we run out of memory again.
I noticed in Australia, actually, this week, they're talking about their junior game is actually removing tackling until a certain age. Completely removing it. So...
Yeah, I thought they already did that.
Yeah,
I think it got put on hold and it's just coming back around again because there was such a backlash from it. People weren't happy with it, and it's been put on hold, but it's supposed to be coming back in again.
Certainly, I know. Being a southerner at the moment, it seems to me that it seems to be a lot of the northern clubs that seem to be against dropping the physicality of it, whereas you look at people like Sean Johnson turning around and saying, I learned all my skills playing touch and tag, and then I started to do contact.
Yeah.
Whereas I know sometimes we've been to places, maybe not even in the heartlands, some of the ones close to the heartlands when we've been asking, let's drop off some of the contacts, let's make sure we rotate players, let's give everybody the same chance. And they're like, no, we want to play 13 aside, this is it. And certainly it's true that playing smaller numbers gives more people chance with the ball, more chance to tackle, things like that. We need to be a lot more flexible with juniors especially, and to create the resilience to be able to adapt to whatever's in front of us is part of what we need to do. So if we just tell kids you're going to play 13 aside, suddenly you turn around and say you're only going to play 10 aside, they're like, whoa, what's going on? We need to create that in them, that we can like actually say you can adapt to 10, you can adapt to 9, you can adapt to 7, you can do 13, you can do whatever. And then we're creating the kind of players that they're getting in Australia who can just look at what's in front of them and attack. And we're very good in rugby league at doing that generally. We find at our club, we've got players that go to rugby union and are leading the way because they look differently. They're not just conditioned to do the same things. They're told to look in front of them and try and exploit where the gaps are. I think that's what we need to create with kids.
And maybe not playing contact as early.
Yeah.
It develops and refines the other skills, the handling skills, the vision. You know, not just playing, you know, up that middle channel all the time.
100%.
You know, looking at the bigger picture, setting plays up from an earlier age and refining those skills.
I was going to say, we hardly ever play any contact with our juniors in training. It's all tag, all touch, because the season's so condensed anyway, we can't afford any injuries. So, but even so, tag gets them into the right position to make tackles. They don't have to do it against their mates. They do it hard enough when they go out against the opposition. So, yeah, I mean, all these things are a way of developing stuff, but it isn't always about size, though.
I think looking at my early days in the 80s, playing as a prop forward in Wigan and St Helens amateur clubs, I was suppressed. You know, I was told week in, week out, run straight, and that's all they expected of me as a big lad, as a prop forward. And then I'm not saying I'm any better now, but you know, having come down to Telford and played touch in my 40s, suddenly I have this opportunity to run with the ball, sidestep, pass it, you know, look at the bigger picture. And I'm not saying I'm particularly good at that, but those skills are there, and so don't suppress those skills by playing too much contact.
Brilliant. Great question. Thanks, Matt. Okay, Fred's question then. Does a strong international game benefit rugby league in the Midlands, and if so, why?
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We all agree.
Yeah, in total agreement.
Yeah.
We've already touched on it, haven't we? Rugby League World Cup it brought the game to a national audience again. I spoke to a journalist a few weeks back. She got in touch with us because she wanted to speak to us as being the local rugby league club, and she purely got in touch with us because she'd watched the Rugby League World Cup and was so impressed by it. So, yeah, 100% we need a strong international game. It needs to be even stronger than it is, in my opinion. We need those big games every single year, not just a World Cup every 4 years. Everybody in rugby league's crying out for it, aren't they?
Yeah.
I'm no different.
We used to have it every year, didn't we? You know, we played Australia, we played New Zealand. You know, they were every 2 years. We go to Aussie every 4. They'd come here or whatever. The bits in between were filled in by playing France and Papua New Guinea. We don't have that anymore. It's gone.
No.
It needs to come back. We need a strong international rugby league.
Across all games, you know, all you know, women, ladies, wheelchair, PDRL.
And even if we're not playing Australia and New Zealand, that's fine. I mean, World Cup show that there can be competition.
Yeah, the Samoas, Tongas, they're all massive nations now, aren't they?
Nations absolutely needs to be brought on.
And again, I think that's come about. I think the Samoa, Tonga, Fiji, probably to some lesser degree Cook Islands, but they're still there, has come about because the game down under now looks differently at the way they... what am I trying to say? Players want to play for the heritage.
Yeah,
you know, not just necessarily Australia because they were brought up there, but they want to play for Samoa or Tonga because they've got a Samoan or a Tongan parent. And I think it's great to let them do that, and that has helped develop the game.
Right, we're gonna wrap it up there because we filled another card here, so that stopped working as well. It's been an absolute pleasure having you both on the couch, Spaff. It's been incredible listening to you and your
thank you very much.
Your knowledge of the game, you know, your past history with rugby league in Midlands, and just hearing how you kind of got into it and you know how passionate you are. So you know, thanks for joining us there.
Thank you.
And then Graham, everything that you're doing for MND, raise awareness there and to raise much needed funds and awareness for MND is incredible. I can't wait until the Trans-Pennine Ultra. I'll be there.
Thank you. Yeah,
tagging along, and
my main crew member and cameraman.
Yeah, and I'll be sharing a bit on these on the Rugby League Outsiders social media stuff as well. So, Karl, we'll give you the last word. Have you got anything to say?
No, not other than I'm not going to Featherstone ever for a long time. No, it's been fantastic. And just while we're talking about it, I'd just like to thank everybody that's actually already subscribed to the program. We broke the 500 followers, didn't we? Within a few days. So yeah, it's fantastic. Keep supporting us, and we'll keep pushing the content out there.
Brilliant.
Can I just throw a thank you in as well, please? 4020 magazine have very kindly written an article in this month's magazine about the Trans-Pennine Ultra. Of all the people who were MND warriors, MND runners, it's really kind of them to cover this 150 kilometre run that I'm doing. So particular thanks to 4020 magazine and Phil Kaplan, the co-owner and editor of the magazine.
Amazing. Okay, so
available from all good bookshops.
So until the next episode, take care.
Cheers, thank you.
Thank you.
That's the final whistle for this week's episode of the Rugby League Outsiders. We hope you've enjoyed it. Don't forget to follow us on social media and share this podcast with your friends. And as always, if you have a story to tell, a club to plug, or a player that deserves recognition, we want to hear from you. So until next time on the Rugby League Outsiders, take care.